What's up, everybody? It's Dr. Vibe here. I am the host and producer of the award-winning Dr. Vibe show, two-time Canadian Ethnic Media Association award winner. 2020, I received the award for Best Podcast News, and in 2018, I received the Innovation Award. Also, once a month, I host the only online show in the world for fathers and dads that is sponsored by Dove Men Care, and also it is sponsored by Dad Central Canada's National Fatherhood Organization. As always, I'd like to say you're blessed, highly favored, a magnet for miracles, and a solution for someone's problem. And remember, the Dr. Vibe Show is the home of Epic Conversations. I'm also the host of Epic Conversations. Most Sunday afternoons, as we're broadcasting live on January 17th, which is a Sunday, and half of the first month of the first year is already done. But most Sunday afternoons, I host an Epic Conversation called Black Canada Talking. And what is Black Canada Talking all about? It's a live online event that provides Black Canadians an opportunity to give their takes and POVs on stories that are of importance to them. And today we have two new friends. And you know, I always like to meet new friends. So let's give a little background. Clovis and Sherron Grant are parents of two children, ages 26 and 24 years. One of them has special needs. Sharon is a school principal in the Toronto District School Board, and Clovis is the CEO of 360 Kids, an organization serving homeless youth in the York region of the Greater Toronto area. They founded the Black Parent Support Group in November 2020, so it's not that old. The group was developed to support the unique needs of parents and caregivers who are Black and raising a child with special needs. The child can be of any age and of any disability. The group's intent is to provide a safe space for families to network, build connections, problem solve, and reduce their isolation. The group is free to join and meets monthly on the second Tuesday of the month. They provide support. They do provide many things. Things that they do also help with is support, isolation, funding, resources, and friends. These are the things that many families who care for someone with special needs think and worry about. For many of these families, their circle of support is quite small, especially if you're African-based families. It's very small. This is often the case for racialized communities who have a child with special needs. The organization was created to provide a safe space for families of African descent to come together to meet and connect, share resources, expertise, and needs, inspire support to one another through the unique and often challenging and isolating journey of raising Black children or supporting a sibling of any age or disability. And recently, if my producer can do this, they appeared in the Toronto Star. So if we can get there, we go. Their big appearance in Toronto Star, and I wanted to reach out to them, but I was beat to the punch because their son David, who I've done some work with in the past, said, "Hey, my parents it'd be great to have them on the Dr. Vibe show." So here they are today, Sharon and Clovis. Welcome to the Dr. Vibe show, Black Canada Talking. How are we today?
Awesome. We're great.
We're
glad
good.
to be here.
Thank you.
Great. Awesome. Great to have you. Thank you. And how is 2021 treating you so far?
Well, you know what? We're alive, we're kicking, and we're grateful.
Excellent.
Things are good. We're healthy. We're strong. We're rolling with it, like many of us are.
You got it.
Excellent. Well, this is the first time you've been on the platform, and like I like to do with people who are on or friends that are on for the first time, can you share a little bit about your background? Because we got a little bit of it in your profile, so we always like to do ladies first.
Okay.
Right. Well, thank you. All right. Well, as you mentioned earlier, I am a principal at the Toronto School Board, so I've been in education since 2005. And before that, doing all various kinds of employment, trying to, find out where I best fit. But most importantly, I spent quite a few of those years just caring for our youngest child when he was diagnosed with autism in the year 2000. He had just turned 4 years old. So that became a lot of my focus as a mom, as a parent, just to really support him. And I'll pass over to Clovis.
And I've been in the social services world pretty much for as long as I can remember. I studied psychology, and I got into the area of homelessness in 2003. And really since then, I've been working in the area of youth homelessness and seeing the need for more supports and services, particularly for racialized communities, because we see an overrepresentation of Black individuals in social services and in homelessness in particular. And I used to work for an organization called Eva's Initiatives, and it was actually founded by Eva Smith. But the programs are geared to youth of all stripes, not just Black youth. And now I work as a CEO for 360 Kids, which is providing similar services, a range of homelessness services for youth in north of Toronto. So that's in the York region. So just dealing with the issues of homelessness is something that I do deal with all the time. And you see a lot of intersections between with disabilities. Sometimes you'll see some intersections with race, gender, LGBTQ, 2S population as well. So with COVID, we see that the need has even increased as a result of the pandemic. So lots I can talk to you about the work I do, but I'm glad for the opportunity to be here.
Wonderful. Professionally, both of you are givers, and I have a sense that that's part of your core, whether it's professionally or non-professionally. Where do both of you get your giving and sharing spirit from?
Oh my. I mean, I think for myself, I believe I saw it in my upbringing from my parents. I'm of Jamaican heritage, born in England, raised here, but of Jamaican heritage. And I think just watching my parents over the years, they were very loving and helpful to people regardless of race and background. There was always lots of different people coming in and out of our home, even family members that maybe had some struggles and maybe others weren't as supportive to them. My parents would do their best to support them financially or emotionally. And so I guess I learned from that example, from that role model of my parents. And then secondly, most definitely my faith, our faith. Just believing that, of course, it's better to give than to receive, and the goodness and the how filled up I feel when I do give. I'm not sure where I get the energy from in raising our children and raising a child with autism. And yes, in the job that I have as a school principal, I mean, just spending this whole weekend here, just reviewing a report card comments so I can have it all prepared for my teachers so they can do their work, and just being there to support them and the families at my school and the children. As Clovis is saying about how the pandemic has really affected the work that he's doing and affecting the youth. We've definitely seen it in our families, and my school is a very racialized school in a very racialized community. I feel very blessed to have been placed there, and there's work to be done. It's a work that I love. It's a work that I feel joy in doing. And I just continue to work hard and think hard and pray hard so that I can be the best that I can be for my staff and for my families, and to be the best I can be to support them and help, their children achieve and be the best that they can be.
And all of that is true. I too am Jamaican. I was born in Jamaica. I came here at the tender age of 9. And to answer your question, I mean, there's so many factors that I look at in terms of that drive that you're talking about. I mean, my parents didn't have a lot of education, but they really stressed the importance for the kids, for us, to make sure that we get an education and take advantage of the opportunities we have here in North America to be able to do that. And so for me, there's this deep-seated gratitude. It could be my faith. I do attribute a lot of it to the faith. My parents raised us in the church, and so what Sharon talked about, the better to give than to receive, is sort of inward. It's part of who we are as individuals, and so knowing that really I could be just one accident away from being on the other end of receiving services. And that reality just has always grounded me that I'm no better than anybody else. I've been given great opportunity to get education. I've been given great opportunity to have the jobs that I've had in my life, and the opportunity to give back. I think all of us really should relish and take advantage of the privilege of having health, of having employment, having education, and much of that is because of those two factors I mentioned: the upbringing that I have, and the parents, and the upbringing and the faith. All of those things are really important factors that drive. And the more you learn through education and you start to understand about the needs that exist in the community, and it just really affirms what I'm seeing. When I was working in the area of social services and seeing how an accident can change the outcome of an entire family, and how it can quickly drive people to poverty, and just that reality for so many, just because of something like an accident. I realized, my goodness, I could be on the other side of the table. When I see people who become homeless for so many different reasons, it's not often the reasons that people think. There are a lot of stereotypes people have about the homeless, and I think if people can really think about their own stories and realize that they too could be one of those individuals, just because of sometimes challenges in their lives and how they deal with it. And so for me, it's that recognition that I am no better than anybody else. I've been blessed by God in many respects, from my health, from my family. And each day that I do the work that I do, it's grounded in that sense of gratitude that I'm actually able to live and to give. And I take that very seriously, especially during the pandemic when, I'm employed, I'm doing work, I have a job, and knowing that there are families who've been adversely affected because of the slowdown in the economy. Again, all of that is just, sobering for me. So, hey, that's what gives me the drive and the energy. I think gratitude is something that we underestimate how powerful it can be.
Wonderful. That's great. One of the words I don't like using in the world is assumption. So I would love both of you to give a definition of what is autism, because some people may just know it as a phrase. So I would say that in this conversation, I bow my bald head to both of you to give that definition, if you could define it for our audience.
All right.
I'll take a quick stab. In layperson's term, it's a neurological disorder. It's not it has anything to do with intellect. It's neurological. And the best way of defining it to people is when you think about how the body is wired. The brain with autism is not fully wired the way that everybody else's brain is wired. And so because of that wiring, certain aspects of that individual is thrown off. And that means some people may see arms flapping. That's because of the wiring in the brain. They may pay more attention to certain details that you and I will, like a fly just passes by, if I jump to it, right? We learn to manage that. But a child with autism may focus on something like that. So the simplest definition is, think about it as the way the brain is wired. That's the issue. And something that I think is important to also note is that it's not fixable. Often you hear that autism was cured. Well, really what happens is you learn how to deal with some of the deficits in the wiring, but it's not a curing. It's like if you had a broken leg. If you're born with one leg shorter than the other, there are things that you can do to balance your gait so that you're actually able to maybe walk normally, but the fact that your leg one is shorter than the other will never change in your life, but you've learned how to manage. So in the same way, autism, what happens is, because the wiring is a bit off, what ends up happening, and here's our son.
There he is.
What ends up happening is people learn to cope with some of those deficits in the way the brain is wired, if that all makes sense.
And when we're discussing those deficits, there's different areas. I kind of forget them all because I've kind of learned to live with it over the last 20 years, but it may impair communication. Yeah. You will see it may impair sensory. So as Clovis was saying, things like noise. For some persons on the spectrum, noise wouldn't necessarily bother them at all. For others, they can be extremely heightened. They talk about hyposensitive and hypersensitive. Touch, some will be sensitive to touch. So our son loves hugs, loves big, tight bear hugs. So someone like you, he would be in love with you. He'd be hugging you up all day. He loves hugs. Others, don't touch them. Like, you have to touch them on their terms. So there's behavior, there's sensory, there's communication. And another piece about autism is there's a spectrum. So they call it autism spectrum for a reason. And there's a very famous quote that we share in the autism world is, once you've met one person with autism, you've met one person with autism. So don't assume that, like the famous character in Rain Man that was played by Dustin Hoffman, and Tom Cruise played his brother, and that gentleman, he was what they called a savant. So he was not very verbal. He talked in a lot of repetitive sentences, but, he could count cards and numbers and so on. So he kind of had that gift, that focus, that unfortunately his brother exploited. But that's one type of autism. Our son is another type of autism. There's all different kinds of areas on that spectrum. And so when people meet persons on the spectrum or work with them or support a family member, be careful to not compare. There's baseline things that they pretty much all have in common, but how it shows itself is different depending on the severity of the autism in their life. Yeah.
Excellent. Let me ask, hello, Isaiah. I know you're somewhere around there. There you go. Let me ask, has there been anything that has changed in how you're adapting with Isaiah's autism from his youth to where he is now?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Oh, yeah, sure. It's a journey. It's a journey, Dr. Vibe. So as I mentioned, he was diagnosed at 4. And when I got the diagnosis, I don't know about other parents, basically like, here you go, Merry Christmas, your son is on the spectrum, here's your diagnosis, here's a couple of phone numbers to different agencies, good luck. And so, you walk out of that doctor's office, and I know for myself, I kind of came home and broke down, like just, oh my gosh, what do I do? My life is over. My son's life is over. It was a very dark time, probably one of the darkest times in my life, because you feel like there's been a death. And this was actually explained to me by some very dear church friends of mine who were educators and had children, themselves with learning disabilities and so on, which is different. But what they helped me to understand is, when you have a child with a disability, depending on the severity of that disability, you kind of grieve. And because you kind of feel like it's a death, that the child that you expected to have is not necessarily who now is in front of you you're going to be raising. I mean, if I had to choose between autism and my son, I will take my son with the autism. Like, I would never give up those 24 years for anything. But to say it's been easy, there's no way. So, so back in the beginning, I had to get through that dark period. It took me a couple of months. Took Clovis a little longer. He can share about that later, but took me a couple of months. And then I reached a point where, okay, you know what? If I don't get up and fight for my child, he will never develop. He will never grow, because our son is rather more challenged on the spectrum. So if I don't get up and start to go to the groups and do my research and get them therapy and figure out what's out there, because the prognosis for their future lives was very grim. If I don't help them, no one will. So then I started to access the agencies and the programs and the IBI therapy and the ABA therapy, and anyone who has a child on the spectrum or is in the field, they'll know what that lingo means. And so in the beginning, it was a lot of learning. And Isaiah was learning about himself and his autism and who he was and what this is all about. Our older son, David, who connected us together, he had to understand, okay, what's up with my brother here? Why doesn't he talk like the other kids and act like the other kids and play with the other kids? Here, I beg mommy and daddy for a brother, and this is what I get. So those first few years was a lot of learning and a lot of acceptance. I think that was a huge piece in those first few years, is to accept that my son is not lesser. He's different. His journey will be different. And so therefore, our journey as his family has to be different. And then we hit the teen years, and then, there's the puberty issues and the high school issues, and we had to work through that. And over the years, I met parents who said, stay in there, because it will get easier if you keep working at it, working with him, getting the supports you need, doing your reading, educating yourself, and then applying that, it will get better. And we're happy to say it has gotten better. He's still on the spectrum. He still has his deficits. He still has his challenges. But our acceptance, our understanding, our embracing of the realities of our life is in a much better place. And so when we're in a better place, we can be in a better place for him. So that's kind of my take as mom.
And I would echo some of Sharon's last points. When I hear the question, the biggest transformation, if I could use that word, that for us is that word acceptance, because your early prayers was that God, make this go away.
Yep. Fix him.
Your family members were all thinking that, maybe with some parenting tips and techniques and all of those things, it will go away. And so that would characterize the early years as you try to figure out what just happened and how I've been studying social services. Why now am I the recipient of social services? Those first few years was difficult in that. And when you start adding some of the behaviors, and for us, when we think about going to a mall, when we think about just being together as a family and being out in the public, you get a deeper understanding as to why sometimes people stay in their homes, because the journey is tough. Being able to, for Sharon and I, just even have alone time was unheard of, especially in the younger years, because you can't just ask the neighbors and the neighbors' kids to babysit for you. You actually have to get trained people who can support your child with autism. So then you start dealing with costs and money. And again, that's where the acceptance comes in. It's like, well, I am always going to be broke. Any dollar that I get, okay, who am I going to give it to this time? So again, you stop lamenting and saying how awful my life is. Yeah. Not to say that I'm super awesome, but you go through those moments where it's like, why is my life so hard? Will it ever get any easier? Again, early years, and I would say, as time went on, I started feeling much more, okay, this is my life. And if great things happen as a result of it, I will accept those. Yeah. If it continues to be tough, well, what am I going to do? Give them up? And no, that's not going to happen. So that's where the acceptance comes in. And with that, as Sharon indicated, as he got older, the negative pathway of thinking, oh, gee, at some point, because he is so aggressive, because he is so unbelievably hard to support and work with, our destiny is for us to give him up. And we've seen that happen, and it was aching our soul. But as it so happens, as he got older, his behaviors actually mellowed, which we're grateful for, because he's 6'3", 6'4", 240 pounds. I can't pick him up anymore. Those early days where I can grab him out of Walmart and drag him home, I can't. He will just push me down. So knowing that his behaviors have toned down has really given us a lot more hope. And I mean, we made the decision early on that autism was not going to rule our life. And we were going to do our best to normalize our son's life and our family's life as best as we can, which means we will go to places like Disney World. We know that it's not easy, but we're going to do it.
Amidst the stares and the comments and the looks, and I'm grateful. I'm grateful to Clovis for that.
So we're going to do as much as we can without pushing him too much. But we're going to go camping. We are going to do the grocery stores, the Walmarts, and we pick our battles. But we're going to do those things. And I think it has actually helped in Isaiah's journey, because he's learning how to be with people. Because part of the autism spectrum is that the social interactions is one of the areas where there is a deficit and a challenge. And the more he's around people, the more he actually learns how to be around them. He won't be like our older social son, David, but he will be able to greet people like you saw earlier. He came to look at what we were doing and say hello and move on. If we kept him in his autism bubble, he would never be able to actually get there. So the acceptance all along the journey over the years has been, I would say, the biggest transformation for us. And because of that, it has allowed us to do things that we would never consider doing before, and expose Isaiah to things that we would never have thought possible before. But now he's exploring different foods that we never thought we think he would just be focused on the carbs. And
he has expensive taste. He loves lobster.
He loves lobster. But part of that is exposure. And so as a parent, we had to make some decisions once we accepted the fact that this is our lot in life, and we can either lament and cry and sit and moan and mope, or we can actually live life. And we've chosen to live life, chosen that knowing that there will be challenges along the way, but getting involved with agencies. I came late to the game. Sharon was out there early, but I came late to the game and realized that that's how I need to grow. And it has actually changed my life, my character, and I've become more of an advocate than I have ever been before. And all of that I attribute to my son. So really, he has helped us individually as people, and he has helped mold our careers. I think my older son, David's career choice was heavily influenced by his brother. And so I would say, just as Sharon did, there is nothing that we would change as a result of our son.
Well, thank you for sharing some of your journey. It's impactful to see. It's been a family journey with family impact. Have another conversation piece for both of you. How much support up until you started this group had you received?
Well, I would say Sharon was really good at the support piece, making lists and going to as many groups, getting on as many mailing lists as possible. And all of that was, I would attribute it wholeheartedly to her. And then I came late to the game to be involved in some of those services. But I would say the services were there. We just needed to get up and get out and be involved. And we'll talk about some of the needs that we saw, which is why we started this group. But the services were there. It's just a matter of knowing that how to take advantage of them?
So supports, that's a huge question, because you can think of, human supports and financial resources and therapies and so on. So the thing that you find in this journey in raising a child that has challenges is, as a parent, you got to be a detective. You have to get out there. You have to put yourself out there. You have to ask the questions. And so in the beginning, that's what I did. I mean, I used to say that I was getting my own PhD in autism. Every book that came out, every workshop I could attend, every article I could read, different friends of mine were sending me articles. I was reading them, I was sharing them. So I was going to the groups, and the groups were good. But of course, I always noticed, how come there's no one else of color in the room? Like, great, what we have in common is we all have a child with a disability. Okay, this person, oh, you have a child with autism, and you have a child with Down syndrome, or you have a child with Fragile X, or the case may be. Okay, we have that in common. But some of these cultural competencies, things I wanted to talk about on another level, if I brought it up, you could tell that the speakers didn't really know how to address it, or it just wasn't addressed at all. So it's like, okay, I'll just kind of leave that. Then to come speak to my friends, and we have great friends. We have lifelong friends, but they're not raising a child with a disability. They're raising a child, but there's a different nuance when you have a child with a disability. You're talking about IEPs, you're talking about, potentially your child can be suspended from school because they've been aggressive, and maybe that school, wasn't as understanding about the mitigating circumstances as we referred to it. School boards are getting better, but it's been a challenge. Our faith-based brothers and sisters, again, love our faith-based community, but there is a lot of learning to be done there, and a lot of teaching that Clovis and I and a couple of other families in the church, we were doing the teaching. So when you talk about, referring to us as givers, sometimes it's like, okay, I just want someone to give to me. Like, I'm teaching everybody, like, can someone give to me, please? Yes. So supports were there in different ways, but it's kind of like, okay, so these girlfriends, you're going to be there for this. So when I need to go out and just be with the girls, Clovis is home with the say, okay, girls, but it's not going to be a special needs night. And then I have some of my special needs friends. And okay, if I have an issue about therapies or getting monies from the government, okay, I'm going to call these friends. So I end up having different groups and pockets of people I could connect with over the years. But again, it's work. You have to make it happen. You have to be intentional about ensuring that you've connected and you're out there and you're plugged in to all the information that's possibly out there. It's work.
I believe it. So based on what you just shared, what was the impetus to start the group? How did that come about? Okay,
so I kind of alluded to that earlier. Again, from the moment one, I started joining groups from, 2001, I guess it would be. The very first group I joined was with Community Living and a fantastic agency. And I'm very grateful for the supports they provide us over the years. And then there's other groups, that I would join, all, different disability focused groups, whether it be, Autism Society Ontario and so on. But again, you'd sit there and, the foundation for a lot of these groups, they're really created by non-Black people, and so these are people from a culture very different from our own. And so there's things that you want to talk to, on your level when it talks about, okay, how do we interface with our family where we don't talk about disability? Because, for example, our son does not look disabled. Autism, they look like any other person walking down the street, unlike other challenges where it does affect their physical presence features. So then there's an expectation amongst our people, like, can't you just kind of fix some kind of thing? And it's just that understanding and that awareness that our people need to have. And as I've met different Black people over the 20 years, we've all said that, like, man, wouldn't it be nice for us to have our own group on top of the other groups that we attend, because there's value in those groups. So wouldn't it be great for us to have our own group where we can come together and talk on a level to talk, okay, how do we work within our church family? How do we work within our extended African family that doesn't understand this and think that you can lay holy hands and pray it away, or talk about parenting, or talk about trying to get them, get the child to settle when you're at a family get together and all the different family members are trying to tell you how to raise the kid and tell the kid what to do, and the kid goes into an autism meltdown. When we get with our peoples, we get that. And over the years, I would meet one or two people. Wouldn't that be nice? Wouldn't that be nice? Then I would see the different emails I would get coming out. There's a Chinese speaking group for families with a disability, for families with a child with autism. And then I saw the South Asian community created their own program and agency, and now they have their own center. I'm like, okay, so the Chinese have done it, and the South Asian community has done it, and the Francophone community, they will get together and looking, nothing for the Black community. So this was a few years on my mind. Finally, I said to myself, the Christmas before 2019, I'm going to make this happen. I'm going to make this happen in 2020. Not realizing a pandemic was on the way, not realizing all that would come out of the United States, all the sadness and the continued violence against Black people at the hands of the police, and all the conversation that's come out as a result. Didn't realize that's what 2020 would look like, but I knew that this needs to happen, and I'm going to start it out, and then hopefully a few people will join in, and we'll see how it goes from there. Not realizing it would snowball the way that it has to now. Almost 130 families on our email group, approaching 70 families on our Facebook group, all within just over 3 months' time. And just hearing from the families, yes, this has been needed. Thank you for getting this started. It's a breath of fresh air. This is a community. This is by us, for us, not realizing, knowing it for myself as an individual, but now hearing that affirmation from individual after individual, from Nova Scotia to BC, a few people from the States, as far as the continent of Africa, and seeing when it comes down to it, we just wanted our own space to come together and connect and see that, hey, I'm not alone in this battle, in this race. So that's where it came from.
Wow. Thank you. That is an amazing story. I would like to have memories of the first meeting.
Oh, the first meeting.
First meeting, we were really, really conscious that we didn't want it to be about us. So we needed to ground that early, because otherwise it just became Clovis and Sharon talking about their life.
No, we're not experts. We've never claimed to be. We're just parents.
Yeah. And that was issue number 2, is just outlining that this was a space for them as parents to also learn. And so as a result of that, what we did, after sharing about our journey, because we had to ground it somewhere, after sharing about our journey, we wanted them to be able to share their journey. And we broke out into groups and heard from them what this group could mean for them. And if they had their wish list, what would it look like? And so we wanted to make sure that from the get-go, from the beginning, that it was about them.
Yes.
It was about their needs.
Yeah.
It's about their families' needs, and how as a community, as a collective, that those needs could be met by just being together and talking about the things that we share in common, and some of the things that maybe they were afraid to discuss in other spaces. And so that's really what came out of that first group, as well as lastly, knowing who is around the table. Because what we wanted to make sure of as well, that it wasn't focused on one disability. Our son has autism, and we know that the numbers of people with autism is steadily increasing. But we know that there are a lot of other individuals who are struggling with other disabilities. Yes. And maybe because autism is just now in everybody's face, some of those other disabilities are not getting as much attention, to give space for those families as well to understand and get their needs. So that really came out of the first group. And from that, we then, Sharon and I started brainstorming. Okay, So how do we map out the next, let's say, 6 to 12 months? And what could it look like based on the feedback that we got? And so that has actually been the guidepost that we're using to arrange our monthly meetings, and using topics that the families have indicated that they're interested in hearing about. And then we are working together with them, with other professionals in the community to get those topics, get those people to come in and share those topics. But the one main criterion being those individuals who come to facilitate have to be Black as well. Yes. So I don't know if there's anything.
Well, the only other thing I was going to add is Clovis did a great job of setting up some questions just to break the ice. Because again, we're a whole bunch of strangers coming together, kind of airing our business, right? And again, that's something, in our people, we don't like to put our business out there. What is that person on the receiving end going to do with that information? So it's building that trust. And so that's what we really wanted to start the first meeting off with. So I remember one of the questions talking about gifts. What gifts do you think that you're bringing to this group? And I know in my breakout group, many of them, they had difficulty trying to figure out if they had any gifts. And I had to remind them, no, absolutely you do. I said, the fact that you're here and you're still here fighting for your child, you're still here wanting to learn. Some people in the group whose children are already in their 30s. Some people in the group whose children just received a diagnosis weeks within earshot of that first meeting. It's like, no, you have gifts. You may not know those gifts yet. It could be just being here to listen. It could be just here to tell your journey and your story and to show, hey, if I stay in here with my child at 2 or 4, look at where my child can be at 17 or 25. And so it was just very uplifting. I think when the night was done, the smiles that we could see on people's faces, the sense of, okay, yeah, exactly. It was okay. This is something that I need. This is something else to fit into my arsenal to keep me on the right path. I'm not sure if I repeat myself, but yeah, we had about 30 families that first night, which was extremely encouraging because I'll often go to regular parent meetings and there might be 10 in the room. So to have 30 at our first meeting was pretty incredible as far as we're concerned. And every meeting we've had more and more and more people come. And if they can't, they send me an email to let me know that they can't, although no RSVP is expected. So it just shows the respect and the value that people place on the group.
Yeah.
Fantastic. What are some of the needs or some of the parents have expressed that they're looking help in? What areas are they looking for help or support in?
Well, just over in the last few weeks, I've had families email us asking for references for a physician. Where can we find a family physician? Where can we find a social worker? Where can I find someone to support me in completing forms so that I can get funding to support my child? Because again, Clovis and I, as you shared, we have full-time jobs. So this is volunteer. This is something on the side. And again, we're not the experts, but these are things where we can go into our own experience over the last few years and we can share. I get a ton of emails from different agencies. So I think back through those and I forward that information, or I may throw it out to the group and say, hey, this parent, actually 2 parents have inquired about housing. Because for those of us with older children, and that's the next thing is, and we've already been having those discussions, okay, where's Isaiah going to live and who is he going to live with? And so I've already had parents who are now already on that journey and I'm looking to connect them so they can start to chalk it out. Is there potential that our children could be roommates? Yeah. We've had people in our brothers and sisters to the south of us asking about, hey, is there anyone in this area that could become a play buddy for my child or for my young adult child? So that's just a few resources and supports that families are already seeking in the last few weeks.
And I think that the forum, just to be able to actually have those conversations really was reassuring to hear, because we weren't sure how it would be received, but the families are coming back. And so it tells us that their needs are being met, and we're grateful for that.
Yeah.
Excellent. You had mentioned people coming in and doing presentations. Has it been an easy journey to get those Afrocentric thought leaders in this area to share with your group?
So far, with the topics that we have chosen, we've had a physician, a Black physician who specializes in autism in particular, came to share about sort of the broad spectrum of dealing with the healthcare system. We talked about resources last group. We're going to be in our February session, we're going to be talking about dealing with your personal health, self-care, and we have some contacts there. I mean, my wife's very resourceful. We talk to people who know other people, and we just use our network. And so as time goes on, if those networks dry up, we know different people who may be able to make those connections. Maybe even you, Dr. Vibe, have contacts that we can leverage through this forum. But that's the way it works. And so I think the more we get out there, the more people know that this exists. There are people who will reach out to us as well. That has happened. And we're also doing the reaching out to others.
Yeah. We're definitely, if people are listening today and know of people of the African background, Afro-Caribbean, Afro-American, continental, that could and would like to support our group, we would appreciate it, because I do have my connects, but there are some specific topic areas that it would be nice to know of some other options out there. And I mean, we are blessed in our professions, and even with some of our family members, we have been able to make some connections. At least for the next few months, our topics, we should be able to have reflective speakers online. But we're definitely always looking for more partnerships and resources.
Yeah.
How much has the ongoing pandemic had an impact on this community?
Well, let's talk in some of the positives. I think if not for the pandemic, we may not have been able to have the reach through this group that we've had. I mean, when we were conceiving it initially, it was more, okay, we're going to open our home and we're going to bring in families and just use our home to do this. With the pandemic and doing everything online, that has actually had a really positive impact on the way that we're able to communicate. Obviously, there are some challenges that we've seen with our kids, our young people, in that many of them are home. Many families are struggling to figure out, how do I support my child during this time? That's been difficult, and so I think the opportunity to have a group like this, where people can actually come together and share and learn about resources, is going to be very beneficial to them.
Yeah. I would agree with Clovis. I think definitely on the positive side, even some of the resources that are available out there, different webinars and so on. Right. Now you're not restricted by geography. You don't have to worry about childcare necessarily, because it's right in your home. You kind of set your loved one up, and then you can throw on your phone or on your laptop, and you can, engage. But definitely where our loved one is concerned, with them keeping busy. I had one parent share with me that their child was working just prior to the pandemic, but hasn't been working since the pandemic. I know on a personal note, our son, on the positive side, he's doing Zoom classes. He's learned how to navigate Zoom. He's learned how to use his email, which is fantastic. Again, if you had asked me this 5 years ago, I'd say, not my guy. YouTube, watching movies, that's it. So that's a positive. But then the negative is way too much screen time. And, I am somewhat concerned about the sedentary lifestyle he's now living, not enough exercise, not getting out enough, the social skills. He used to go to a day program a couple of days a week. Now he just sees people online.
Right.
And even just worried about aspects of his disability, like his stimming behavior worsening. So there are positives, but there's definitely additional challenges for that we're feeling, that I'm sure that many of our families are feeling. Families who now, trying to work from home, if they are still working and still managing their child who needs that constant supervision and stimulation. So it's very complex for many of us, very complex.
Yep.
Right. Let me ask, as we're starting to wind down here, what is your vision in the near future for this group as it's growing and growing?
Oh, well, I have to keep Sharon in check because the ideas just keep flowing.
Sharon's a driver.
She is very much. But I mean, I see the need as this has broadened to across the country, to international borders. Obviously, our initial concept of bringing them into our home and having a local group has really expanded. So now the idea of chapters is on our mind as things evolve. The idea of bringing a multi-purpose space where we can talk about these issues in as well as wrap other services around that's very Afrocentric in nature. So those are some of the things that we've started looking at. We're looking to create an organization out of it. I mean, it was initially just meant to be something small that we can meet a need, but then as we were seeing more of the need, we're realizing that maybe there's something here that we can build on and create an organization that can start looking specifically at some of the needs within this population for the Black community. And if there's others you want to add?
No, I think he's covered it. And I mean, going back to the beginning when you asked about our driving force, and we talked about our faith, I think that we really believe that God will direct us. We didn't expect this to blow out so large, so quick, and we are so pleased. And that tells us that we're doing the right thing. We're heading in the right direction. So as we are thinking post-pandemic, we're continuing to build those networks and engage in those conversations right now to start to set things up for, okay, where could this possibly go? We'll, of course, be in touch with our families and get feedback from them as well as to what their thoughts are. And then, we'll just see when we knock on those doors, which ones are open for us, which ones are open now, and maybe others that we have to wait a little while before we open those ones up.
Well, final conversation point here. What is your message to the African Canadian and the African community worldwide when it comes to autism?
Well, I would say autism and really any of the other disabilities. One of the key messages for us is hope. You've got to get involved. There is no way about it. You've got to. There are resources out there, but you have to get involved, and that's where you actually get the hope for change and transformation. But I think we've got to figure out how to get people that hope and get people the resources. And this group is meant to be a space where people can have an opportunity to start dreaming in bigger ways about what their child can become. Because for many people, it feels like a death sentence when you're given that diagnosis. It's like, my life is over. I can't do this. No, I would say, when you get up, when you get out, when you get involved, the opportunities are limitless, and for your family and for that child of yours that might not otherwise realize their potential if you keep it in under a bushel.
And I would just add for our family and friends of those of us who are raising a child or a young adult or grown adult with any type of disability is, don't be scared. Don't be scared of the child. Don't be scared of the challenges. Don't be scared to offer your support. We need you. We need our community. We need our blood brothers and sisters. We need our spiritual brothers and sisters. We need our community cultural brothers and sisters. We may not tell you that because of our own pride, but we do. We need you to not judge us. We need you to try to understand. And maybe we just need you to sit and listen, but we need you.
Great words to end off with. Sharon and Clovis, thank you so much for all you have done, all you are doing, and all you'll be doing in the future. I know my producer will put it up before we close out, the contact information. You can contact them via email and on Facebook. It's appreciated, not taken for granted. And I love how you are on the offensive, not the defensive.
Thank you.
Sounds
this has
good.
Been wonderful.
Thank you. It was a great conversation.
Thank you so much. I am Dr. Vibe, the host and producer of the award-winning Dr. Vibe Show, the home of Epic Conversations. I'm the host of Epic Conversations, 2020 podcasts, news, and 2018 Innovation Award winner given out by the Canadian Ethnic Media Association. Also, once a month, I host the only online show for fathers and dads in the world or around the world that is sponsored by Dove Men Care. It's also co-sponsored by Dad Central Canada's National Fatherhood Organization. And I'd like to just say thank you for everyone who watched this live or watching on the replay, or anyone who's listening on the replay. Also, I'd like to thank Natalia, Nicole, and the others who watched the conversation today. As always, I end off my conversations like this. Live your life as a dream. If you can dream it, you can make it. Sometimes you have to get smaller to get stronger. Block assumptions, then aim bigger, aim better, aim higher, aim wider. Remember, love, respect, and faith. And remember, too, to give yourself grace. Thank you so much to BIA Media for another epic production today. God bless, peace to well, keep the faith, and walk good.